Yes, it's been a while since I've created a video, and yeah, there's a good reason for that. Life's been quite heavy. I mean, this past few years it has, but this past year has been something else. Anyway, enough about that. Even though I've been away and absent online completely, I've still been creating in the background. So I've had some time to myself and to myself with the Amiga and with my synthesizers, and I've been creating music. So I've been getting on with my album. But I've also been doing something interesting on the Amiga. I've learned 2 new things, which long overdue. I did set myself this task a long while ago to learn these, like I'm talking about many years ago, but I wish I'd got around to it earlier on. I wish I pushed myself earlier on. Anyway, PCBWay do custom high-quality PCB boards suitable for any of your personal electronics projects, whether through-hole, SMD, multi-layered, flexible, or any other requirement you have. They also have a community of enthusiasts from around the world submitting their personal projects, and you can order PCBs related to anything from others in the community. They also have 3D printing and CNC services. I myself am working on a project for a future video, and I'm planning to use their services since I'm impressed with the quality of their PCBs. I want to show you here. The first thing is I've learned how to use Octamed, and specifically Octamed 4. And I've made it all nicely colored for myself. Actually, before I show you my track, I want to show you exactly where I got the inspiration from. For that, I'm going to need my Meable disc. I used to play Meable, it was in school days, in the evenings and sometimes after college. It was, it's sort of it takes me back. Everyone was crazy about Arkanoid, I was crazy about Meable. Now this track, I remember back then when I first heard it, I kind of got a little addicted to it. And I tried to rip it in Soundtrack, and I couldn't. I tried to get the mod so I could play it in Soundtracker Pro 2, but I couldn't. And I wondered why. But thankfully the disc is open, and you can sort of take out, you can copy across the mod, but again, it didn't work in Soundtracker Pro. Well, it did work in Soundtracker Pro 2, but it didn't work right. So I did an Octamed, and it taught me that sample offset thing that I always like. So yeah, this mod has actually it got my interest in Octamed, as well as taught me the sample offset command. It's this effect from these 2 that I really liked, and I kind of it opened that part of my world when I heard this track. So it's, who is it by? Al Maki. It's Ed Maki and Al Maki who made this game. So it's Al Maki who did the music. So wherever you are, thank you so much. I mean, Soundtracker tries to load it, but it doesn't sound like this because Octamed has something. If you look at the instruments here, there's something called hold and decay. And this is how much the sample decays. Hold is how long the sample plays until it's cut. And that's set, it's set specifically. So it cuts that, how do I explain this? I try to achieve this on Soundtracker by muting the space between the notes. It didn't work. That's more decay, to be honest. By the way, ProTracker also doesn't have this hold and decay thing as well. It's only Octamed. See what I mean? I mean, these notes are out of range. But I like how Soundtracker Pro, it tries its uttermost best, kicking and screaming, to load it up. I mean, it's drawing zeros and pause buttons and all sorts of characters here. So I tried so much to, do a workaround on that on Soundtracker. I couldn't get it to sound like this. So it's always been a thing for me to create a mod that has this sort of effect, because I just love it. Anyway, so my track, it's inspired by the technique of this track. So I've used a different sample sampled it from one of these synthesizers, but the technique is the same. So yeah, I learned Octamed. It took a while. It's been the past. I learned it in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. That's because I've been using Soundtracker and creating music on trackers since mid-90s. So I've got quite a history. I know how it works. It's just the way it works is different. The way everything's set out is different. And there's a lot of things that are the shortcuts. A lot of them are inverted, so it does head mash you. So this is going to be one of the tracks in my latest album, the one I'm about to release. It's the first track which I wrote was Subdued Light, the music video which my previous video. That is the first track I wrote since my mum passed away, and yeah, this entire album kind of follows that sort of a theme. So, this is not the only thing I've learned, Octamed. Alongside this, and this is in the same 3-week period, I learned something else also. And that is AHX Tracker. Because I've always wanted to, just like Octamed. Obviously this I came across it more recently, but Octamed I've known it since, back in the day. Since that little jumping man. So this is my first ever track on AHX. Excuse me for being a bit rusty on music creation on this thing. Again, as I said, it's my first track. Again, the shortcuts are completely different on this to Octamed, and they are to Soundtracker. So it's like 3 sets of shortcuts I'm learning, and 2 sets of shortcuts I'm learning, and it was a bit of a head mash. So basically, I created the instruments as well, each one, and they're wavetables. So there's no samples in this at all. This is synthesized. It's basically pure Amiga. So it's kind of like creating. This is the same way you'd create SID on the Commodore 64. And this is why these guys created the AHX tracker, the Abyss tracker, because they wanted a way to create chip music like you would have SID. The SID's the inspiration behind this program. Again, this one, going to be on my latest album as well. So this is kind of like learning, you know, this and Octamed at the same time. It's like learning two languages that are similar at the same time, as in like spoken languages. And it does mash your head and confuse you, because sometimes I use the shortcuts for Octamed on this, and vice versa. And also sound record shortcuts keep, you know, creeping up in either as well. So yeah, I need to create more on these two trackers to solidify them in my mind a little bit more. But I enjoyed creating on this, and I will do more. It's just like my first time creating full-on chip music. I'll go into each of these, the AHX tracker and the Octamed tracker, in their dedicated videos in future. You know, my experiences with them. But you know, like I did a tracker video, which if you haven't seen yet, you know, I'll link in the description below. You can... Oof. And I'm currently working on a track on Octamed. Okay, so my setup currently right now is the Amiga 1200 running Octamed 4, connected to a MIDI interface. Via the MIDI interface, I have the Yamaha DX7, the original 1983 one, connected to that. Also the TX7 sound module. That is basically a module version of the DX7. That's connected as well. There is the Korg Volcas there. There's the Volca FM, which is a third DX7, like a pocket DX7, as well as a Korg bass, a Volca bass. And also there is this Pro VS Mini here. That is kind of the closest thing I'm gonna ever get to a Prophet VS, which is, you know, a synthesizer from the 80s, specifically 1985. It's not quite there. It's not like an exact remake of it, but it's, you know, it's the closest I'm gonna get. And I have to say, to have a setup with the DX7, the TX7, and, you know, all this, it feels absolutely wonderful to have it connected, to have these things connected to the Amiga and to be able to create music on them. And, you know, it's keeping me going right now. Okay, so I'm working on this track called The Other Side at the moment, and it's like just kind of started. So far, there's a bass on the Amiga samples, but also alongside that, it's using the Volca bass. That is using the DX7, well, the Volca FM. Okay, so this sounds unfinished. That's because it is. It literally just goes here and then that's it. Yeah, I'm just gonna get on with this today. Okay, so here we are next day, and so far I've done this. I shouldn't think too much about the volume for each synth or track right now, because I'm not like mastering something right now. I'm actually creating. But I just want to, I'm still like bothered about trying to get all the levels right. I shouldn't really put my energy into that, but this bit sounds a bit unfinished, right? Because it is. So you gotta select the file and then press save song. Yeah. If you press save instrument, it'll save the current instrument you're on, which is that bass drum C. And you can save that on top of your song, right? Also, the mistake I made is because I start going, you know, once you start learning something, you start going autopilot. But then on a bad day, you just get confused and do everything wrong. So this was called Behind the Realm. Now, I wanted to save that. So saving it obviously mouse is not perfect, so I accidentally went that and I clicked load song because I did it very fast, and I just realized I'd lost that progress and yeah, loaded the old one over it. So yeah, please back up, please save it in 2 places. It might be worth me doing that now, just to kind of create a backup folder there. Another thing, let's load up a sample. And another thing I need to keep doing is muting the DX7, the sound output from the DX7, because the DX7 is also acting as the input. These are okay to linger a little bit, but not so much. I want them to linger just slightly, so they kind of feel like it's more dynamic, but then not too much that it clashes with the following note, if you know what I mean. I like there to be a little bit of clash between notes, just a slight bit, just to add that bit of tension, but then not if that lingers on too much, it'll just feel like, you know, cacophony. Segment 2, let's change that to sec 3. I'm something I get used to that. I'm getting used to the keyboard shortcuts for the sample. Okay, that sounds alright. But I want to make the dum-dum thing a bit louder, like emphasized. So every time it goes dum-dum, I'll make the volume a little higher. Now let's see how it all sounds together. Okay, so many hours later, I'm back and I'm done, and I've come up with this. So I've got the DX7 here playing some part of it. I've got the samples themselves, and then you have the secondary bass line, secondary one, the Volca bass. The primary bass line is samples. Then you have the Volca FM, which is the Pocket DX. That's doing some of the main, lead. And then you have this new one here, which I'll show you where I've added. Also, you have the strings with the Pro VS Mini there. So it's like a real hybrid between samples and synths. Kind of really portrays how I'm feeling right now about things, about everything, about life. I've used 16 channels on some blocks as well, and I've let my creativity just go, and I've just added as needed. So as you know, some tracks, like the beginning one, 4 tracks, and then it goes to 8 at some points, and then it goes to 16 at some points. And I really love the fact that you can assign however many tracks you want per block. I'm loving Octamed now, Octamed 4 specifically. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Right, let me tell you where I've added the TX7. So do you remember this part which I did? That dum dum da 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 thing. Now, in the final mix, the dum-dum part you could hear, but the da-da-da part you couldn't hear that much. So I decided, okay, rather than just make it louder, I'm gonna try something. So I got the TX7 out, and that is basically DX7 in synth module form. So I changed those notes here, and I assigned them to the TX7. Kind of gives more that somber feeling, more than that particular sample I was using. It adds that sort of soft, warm, yet still haunting and a little somber kind of mood to it, melancholy sort of mood to it, which is what I'm going for in this track. I'm going to record this now, like do a master recording. Okay, so I've connected everything to this mixing console, and this is not a normal one I use, you know, some of you probably noticed. This is a secondary one I've got, because, you know, there's just not enough input on the other one, but I want something that's a bit more portable, and this is. The other things, they're going through a mini mixer over there, and they are going into this thing here. Let's turn the music up for a moment. So it's got 6 inputs here, right, and 6 mono inputs, that is. So you have the mixing console there going into 3 and 4, left and right of the mixing console. And the second mixer where the Korg Volca bass and the Volca FM portable DX7 is going into here. You know, they got their mixer there. So this mixes them two together. So this is, you know, part of this mixing setup as well. So what you're hearing actually is part of the mix, the final mix. You're included at the moment because I've turned the microphones on and I'm connected to the camera, so you can use that. So it's a very handy device for me. I can use it in multiple ways. You're seeing me work with Octamed 4, and I'm quite happily working with this. It feels different to Soundtracker in the sense of like I'm having to learn a few things, like where things are and all that, but I'm enjoying it, I'm picking it up, and I think I'm going to keep using this. And the fact that I can connect all my synths to the Amiga and it worked just beautifully like this, you know, it's kind of made me happy, to be honest, that I can use this setup alongside Polyend Tracker.